Hello, okay, so today I'm going to talk about how I created this abstract watercolour painting with a bit of pencil on top. And I followed a kind of process which I think if you follow along you could do something very similar, or you could just apply the principles to your own ideas about colours and shapes. I actually did this painting in my sketchbook, but I was really happy with it, and I think that it could have been done on a piece of paper as a finished painting as well. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so I've got quite a large sketchbook here, and I'm just taping off the sides so that I have a neat finish to the edge of my painting. And now the colours that I'm using are cobalt blue, yellow ochre, yellow, and I'm mixing all these colours using these three colours, although I did add Paynes grey as well towards the end. Now I've got a mix of different sized brushes. I've got a really big one for some large areas of washes and some smaller ones for detail, and I do also have a pencil. Okay, so I've got my yellow ochre there, and I've added quite a lot of water, and that's what I'm going to be doing to start with. I'm just going to be putting these quite loose, large shapes down in the background, and that will form the base for my painting. Okay, so I'm speeding this up here, but I'm just carrying on laying down these very large, light coloured shapes, and I'm trying to keep the colours quite neutral, so I'm mixing them together, although I think that one there is a bit of cobalt blue and there's a grey. And I'm just putting in a bit of green, so I'm just laying down the foundations for the rest of the painting. And I'm happy with how it's looking, so I'm just going to leave it to dry now. Okay, so that's dry now, and I'm just going to go in with some more layers on top. And these layers don't need to be extremely dark. We're just building up the layers. So I'm putting a light coloured rectangle there in yellow ochre. And I think what I'll do down here is I'll do a bit of wet and wet work, which will give me a kind of softer edge to the shape. So I'm just putting some water down there, and I'm going to get my cobalt blue, and I'll just make a circle shape there. Now this has come out with a fairly hard edge, although it is slightly softer, but you can experiment with this. Maybe if I was going to do this again, I would try and make the edge even softer than that. But that's really the fun of doing a painting like this. It's experimental, and you can try out different things. Some things are going to go how you want them to go, others won't, but there's lots you can do with the painting, and because you're layering, you can really make decisions about things as you go along. So I would say that the technique is fairly forgiving. I think a few principles to keep in mind is that if you keep your colour palette quite limited, then your overall painting will have a kind of harmony to it. And another thing is that you can repeat shapes, and that will also help with a sort of sense of harmony. And you need to think about the balance. So if you put a darker shape in one area, then you'll need to balance out the other area by putting a similar shape or maybe a smaller shape in a darker colour. And the other thing is that it more or less helps to go from sort of larger shapes to smaller shapes. So just to repeat that, it's a limited colour palette, working light to dark, repeating shapes, and working from large shapes to smaller shapes. I mean, that is the order that you can do things in, but there will always be exceptions. As you can see here, I am actually putting some lighter coloured shapes in afterwards. So these principles are really just a sort of guideline in terms of creating a painting that, you know, looks like this, but there are lots of different ways to create abstract paintings. This is just one possible way. Okay, so I've mixed my cobalt blue and my yellows together, and I've made this green here, and I'm going in a bit darker now. So I've put two repeating shapes, one in the top, one in the bottom, and I think after this I'm going to go in with some smaller shapes. So for this I'm using a sort of lighter green. It's almost adding like a kind of highlight. And then I'm going to get my yellow, which is really quite bright, and add in a little bit of that, as well as some of the yellow ochre, which I'll do in the top hand corner. Okay, so I'm starting to feel like this is getting finished now, and I'm just going to go in with more detail. And for that I'm going to use my pencil, and I think the pencil line is just a really nice contrast to these bigger washes of colour. And at the end you can use it as well to balance out the painting. So in the middle I've put these kind of triangular shapes, which I have experimented with in my sketchbook before, and I feel like the contrast works really well with the other parts of the painting. So I'm just going to speed this up quite a lot while I finish these pencil lines. But I've chosen to go for these kind of slightly geometrical shapes, but you might decide to go for something different. And the thing that's quite fun about them is that once you've done them at the end, you can fill some of them in with paint, and that just adds another interesting element to the overall look of the painting. Okay, so that's what I'm doing there. I'm just filling in those shapes up at the top as well. And in actual fact, I get the tissue here and I just take away some of that paint to lighten it up. And that is the point about a painting, an abstract painting, this painting. You get these kind of what one artist, and I can't remember his name, has described as a sort of push and a pull between the light areas and the dark areas. And I am more or less happy with this painting now, but I feel like it could do with a little bit of a lighter area. So I'm actually going to get some white gouache paint, and I'm just going to add some final areas of lighter colour in just to finish it off. And actually another way to have done this is I could have lifted off some of the colour by using water and a brush, but I decided to go with the white gouache. Okay, so this is done now. I'm happy with it, and I'm just going to take that tape off, which is probably one of the most satisfying parts of the process, to see what the painting's going to look like once that clean edge is revealed. Okay, so I'm really happy with this painting. I'm just going to let it dry now. Okay, so that's it. And what I really like to do with paintings like this afterwards is to get my mount cut out and just search for possible compositions which can give you ideas for paintings that you might be able to do moving forward. I think that first one worked particularly well, and there's some nice ideas could come from this painting. And as I mentioned before, I think you can take these principles and decide on your own colours and your own shapes, and you could even fill a few pages of your sketchbook with similar kind of painting, and from that I think you can generate an awful lot of ideas for future paintings, and it's just a really fun process anyway. Okay, so I really hope that you've enjoyed this demonstration, and if you did, then please hit like, and if you want to see similar videos in the future, then please subscribe to my channel, and comments are always welcome. I love hearing from people who are watching, and it really helps my channel grow as well. Okay, thank you. Bye bye.